Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the Pork Queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. From the Brady Dental Care Studio, I'm Justin Brady, and Apple has made a huge announcement. They've introduced their own VR headset, virtual reality headset, maybe a little bit of AR, augmented reality headset. And so today we have Dr. Juan Pablo Hourcade from the University of Iowa. He's a professor, director of graduate studies for the Interdisciplinary Graduate Program in Informatics. Did I get all that right, Dr. Hourcade?
Hourcade, yes.
Hourcade, yes.
You got it right. Thank you, Justin. And yes, and I'm also in the Department of Computer Science too. So yeah, glad to talk about extended reality, virtual reality, and Apple's new entry.
Yeah, and we're going to break it down for like why do Iowans care? Should they care? Is it going to impact their life? But before we do that, everybody, you know what I'm going to tell you at this point, which is make sure to subscribe to the show because there's so many great people that are constantly on this show. So much great information, including Dr. Hourcade on the line with us right now. I should point out you're in Iowa City somewhere. You're a teacher at the University of Iowa, professor there. So we're doing this remotely today. A lot of guests come in studio, but some do remote too. So that's why the audio sounds a little different than normal, but I really appreciate the time. So let's start really broadly. For those that, people who are not tech nerds probably did not watch the Apple keynote. I did. I'm kind of a tech nerd. I'm a little bearish on VR being in every aspect of our life. I don't see it. Some people do. It's a polarizing device for sure. But can you break down broadly what they announced yesterday for Iowans?
Yeah, so they announced a new product called the Vision Pro, and it's a extended reality headset, which can deliver both virtual reality and augmented reality experiences. I guess what do we mean by those? With virtual reality, it means you're immersed in some in another world. Could be a 3D world, could be some world with two dimensions that's somehow augmented, but you're completely immersed in that world. If you're talking about augmented reality, then you see the world around you, you see the room that you're in, but there's added things that are added to that space, and that's why it's called augmented reality. So there are already products in the market that have been out for some time that do things similar to the Vision Pro, but the Vision Pro is trying to do some things a little bit differently and trying to look at different spaces of use for this kind of system.
And I mean, that's a really good segue, because what are they trying to do differently? How can you break that down for us?
Yeah, so maybe we can talk a little bit about the current space minus this new product.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
And I think there's a couple of products that have been out there for some time that we should talk about. So the one that really brought up virtual reality during the past, I would say 7-8 years, used to be called the Oculus Rift. You might remember, some that might ring a bell. They got purchased by Facebook, or now called Meta. So now you can buy a Meta Quest Pro, and that one costs about $1,000. It's about a third of what this new Apple product would cost. And that one's primarily a virtual reality set. So it's about gaming, entertainment, etc., all where you're immersed in a three-dimensional environment. And you have little joysticks to control what you do in that environment. So that's so far it's been used mainly for entertainment, video gaming, and the like.
Yeah, and the new Vision Pro, does it have, as far as I know it doesn't, but does it have controls, and do you know why they opted to not do that?
It doesn't have controls, and I think the idea is to make it simpler so you don't have to carry extra things that can get lost, or you have to connect in some way or charge. So you do, with the Vision Pro, one big difference is that you operate it just with your voice and with your hands and through gestures, but you don't use any external devices to control.
So I think for like the general audience, they look at something like this, and it basically looks like ski goggles is the best way I can describe it.
That's a very good description.
And if they were to compare it to like the MetaQuest Pro and other, VR 3D headsets, outside of the, Apple styling, because it does look, cooler than most, I don't think most people would see really any difference. Like if you did a lineup, they'd be like, okay, it looks the same as everything else. So like, what is actually different about this? This is definitely a polarizing device. Some people are like, this is the future. Other people are like, this is the most ridiculous thing ever. Like, what's so different about it?
Yeah. So from a hardware perspective, it has a lot of extra added items. But like you said, from a aesthetic perspective or even a social acceptance perspective, there's not a significant difference. The one thing that they have added that the MetaQuest doesn't have is that the outside of the goggles, if you will, has a display that can show your eyes if somebody gets close by. So even though they're not looking directly at your eyes, they will see a display that shows your eyes the way they're looking right now. So that maybe might make it a little less creepy or socially acceptable, or maybe not. I don't know. I could see, I'm sure Apple would not allow it, but I could imagine if other imitators came up later that they would have ways of modifying the way your eyes look or make you look like you're always paying attention when you're not. So.
Yeah, I mean, there are some obviously tech specs that are different, right? There's like the pixel density on the mini screens that are hovering right past your eyes. Like those are extremely dense, so it looks more real. There's a lot of stuff like that in the weeds that's like a technological breakthrough. But the most obvious breakthrough is what you just talked about, which is if you've seen any images of it, it really does look like ski goggles because you can see people's eyes through it. But what you're telling me is that's not actually someone's eyes. That's not actually real. What is it then? Yeah,
it's just they have cameras that can see what your eyes are looking at, and then they can reproduce your eyes on the outside of the goggles through a display, essentially.
And it sounds like more of a human design kind of thing than a practical thing, because the user doesn't need people seeing their eyes. So you mentioned that. You kind of alluded to it. There's a social acceptance factor. We're going to get into that. Actually, maybe we can just get into that now. Is that part of the social acceptance factor? Is like headsets, they go on the eyes and they distance you from other relationships? Is this their way of trying to solve that problem?
That's my best guess as to why they're doing it, to make it seem a little more social. I also remember you might remember Google Glass, which was around, 7-8 years ago, maybe longer. And those, they moved away from that space, Google, just because of social acceptability problems. And those were actually see-through augmented reality glasses. So people could see your eyes all the time. The issue was that other people thought it was creepy that you walk around with something that essentially was video recording everything in your path, or you couldn't tell if somebody was doing that or not.
Right, yeah, and that seems to be the hardest. Is that one of the biggest challenges of technology like this, social acceptance, or are there bigger challenges?
I would say social acceptance is a big one. We can talk about other social aspects too. If you go to the website for the Vision Pro, one glaring thing that you will notice in all the examples they provide is that everyone who uses it is alone.
Yes.
Right. So it's really, they've thought of this as something that you use on your own, not for doing something with someone who's next to you.
And something
socially. Yeah.
No, that's a really impactful statement, because when I was watching, I was taking screenshots of the keynote and posting a few of them on Twitter when I was doing this. And that was the stark thing. That was the thing I noticed most, is that all of these visuals were someone alone in an apartment by themselves with their technology on their face. Like that was the frequent thing. And you seem to think maybe that was by design. I was kind of thinking, guys, you're kind of painting a dark picture of the future. So was that by design, or do you think that was an accidental presentation?
I think that's what the technology supports. It's now really doesn't work well if you are with someone else.
That's like kind of one of the I think the biggest challenges of it, because, you know, especially post-COVID when people are like doing things together all the time. I've always wondered, like, are people like before, this has been rumored for years, by the way, for those that don't know. And I've always wondered, are we really going to have an experience where your 5 or 4 family members all sit down with popcorn and all put their Vision Pro goggles on and they're kind of like disconnected but still in the same room? Is that really a future we're going to see?
Gee, I don't know. May depend on the family, but my thought when I saw the examples is that they're, and also if you think of the initial pricing too, is that initially they might be looking at a segment along the lines of business travelers. So people who travel by themselves, they want to forget that they're crammed in an airplane, or that they're in a hotel room they don't like, and they put this on and they can be in a nicer space.
Got it. So this is what you're saying is, because for those that don't know, the price point's about $3,500, I think, or $34.99, I think. But what you're saying is that might be a price point targeted at like business. I mean, that sounds like a pretty narrow group. I guess, you know, sometimes you focus on the premium market first. Yep. So, like, what are the purposes of this outside of like watching movies by yourself in your hotel room? Are there a bunch of purposes in the industry like that the experts like yourself see? Like, what are those use cases?
I mean, the way they've in the space they want to occupy. So going back to what I was mentioning earlier, you have the Meta Quest, which is VR gaming and that kind of experience. Microsoft has had something called a HoloLens, which is augmented reality, primarily set up for industrial applications. We can talk more about that later if you like. And if you look at what Apple has done with Vision Pro, is you can automatically use any app designed for the iPad, for example. What they're looking at is anything. Think about the types of things you do on a tablet or perhaps even on your smartphone. You could instead do them with this device if you're by yourself. So mainly think about media consumption, web browsing, watching videos, watching movies, anything along, or doing even Zoom phone calls or things like that don't require a lot of manipulation of documents or creation of things. That's, I think, what they're gearing at right now. And what they're trying to do is give you a much richer experience when you do those things than what you get with your phone or with your tablet.
Got it. So, yeah, I mean, the initial launch then, what I'm hearing is pretty much entirely focused on media consumption and entertainment, really. I mean, that's kind of the consumer use anyway. Is that a fair assessment?
I would say there's that. I would say also now that remote meetings have stuck around after the pandemic.
Right.
It's probably a lot nicer to see a set of faces sitting around you than having to look at the small faces and squares on your screen for Zoom.
Sure.
I could see that feeling a little bit more like a real meeting. And they have some interesting technology, speaking of that too, whereas if you're speaking with someone on a video call, even though you're wearing your headset, they can actually show your face without the headset.
Right. Because they take like a scan of your face.
Yeah.
So what is it? Oh, go ahead.
It leads to all kinds of interesting things too, because eventually I could imagine people showing a curated version of themselves in all their video calls.
Yeah, that's true, because the version you're seeing, if someone's using that, isn't actually your face. It's an avatar. It's a model of your face, correct?
A very realistic one.
Which is really bizarre to me. because you're doing Zoom calls, but it's not actually your face. It's an avatar of your face, which begs the question, can we just have AI robots do these Zoom calls for us if they have a scan of their face and we can sleep in?
I think we're not very far from that, actually.
So what is this? Like you mentioned real meetings, kind of almost experiencing, instead of a Zoom call and seeing tiny little, what some people call postage stamps all over their screen, you actually would feel more like you're at the meeting. What are some things, what does this technology enable as far as like new methods of collaboration that right now wouldn't be possible?
So I think I would say for new methods of collaboration, I would say maybe Microsoft HoloLens might be a little bit ahead right now. And the types of things you could do with augmented reality in particular, let's say you're trying to fix something or you need instructions on how to do something. You could share with someone else remotely, someone with more knowledge, what you're looking at right now.
Oh.
They can see what you're looking at, and they can even annotate what you're seeing. So they might be able to draw an arrow and say, see this thing right here? Okay, grab that and then turn it to the right. And you could make it a lot easier to do things like that, for example. Or even, somebody's going somewhere and you haven't had time to tell them what to do. They could put on the goggles and you could tell, oh, you're here. Okay, go here, do this, talk to so-and-so. There's that kind of collaboration that you could maybe try to do it now with a smartphone, but this would make it a lot more seamless and easy to do. I don't think the Vision Pro is trying to do that right now, but it's a possibility for this type of technology in the future.
I mean, so the price point, a lot of people mock the price point, right? But a lot of technologies start out that way. The Tesla model, like they had luxury cars break on the market first. They weren't for everybody. So obviously that's what Apple's trying to do here. They're trying to break into the market with a luxury product. And, so I'm guessing that if they really want this to be a collaboration tool, they'll chop some features out, and they'll probably have because this is the Vision Pro, they might have a Vision Air or something to keep in line with the product category line.
Yep, something like that. I could see that.
Yeah, a little cheaper, not as cool of features, something like that.
So one other thing that's interesting with this device or could be, I guess, controversial, is that they gather a lot of data. So they can see everything around you, wherever you're at. They can listen. So if you think of smartphones as some way by devices, right? Because they can listen to what you're doing, they know where you're at. With this other devices add to all of that. What you're looking at, where you're at, what your environment is like, but also what you're looking at all the time.
And so what you're saying, because there are cameras in this device, right?
There's, I think, about 12 cameras on the outside, and then there's also eye tracking cameras, so they can tell what you're looking at all the time. Right.
So sounds, sights, and essentially your entire house. I think there's like a sound thing that maps your room too, so it knows how to bounce the sound correctly or something.
Yeah, so it creates a 3D map of where you're at.
Yeah. So you're giving, I don't know if giving is the right word, and I'm sure Apple has a privacy statement listed somewhere, but you are essentially handing over a 3D model and a visual map of your entire home if you're using something like this, correct?
And in addition to that, any app that you're using, they can tell what you're looking at all the time.
Got it. So they're really going to have a very robust app approved, because I'm guessing they're going to open this up to the developer community. And so they're going to have a very robust privacy statement and way to protect users' privacy if this is ever going to catch on.
Either that, or they bet that people won't care too much, like it has been the case with smartphones.
Sure. Yeah, no, that actually makes sense. The data thing is actually a bit surprising, because you do forget that they absolutely do need that data in order to make some of these apps run. Because if you are in the headset, in the goggles, and you essentially, it's partly AR. So you can see your surroundings even when they're on, but that they do have to record that data somewhere, and they do have to analyze it somehow. And so, there's a lot of trust involved that they're going to lock that away and encrypt it and not give it to anybody, but it's still definitely a concern. Is that an industry concern that you in your field have been talking about for a while, and are there solutions proposed, or is it still kind of a open dialogue at this point?
I think it has to do with business models. So if you have business models where you get something for free, it's not free, right? So it's an exchange for your data. Your data so they can sell it to other folks, so they can deliver ads. And I think the key thing is going to be, what are the business models that we're going to get in this case?
Yeah, and I want to get back to what you said earlier. You mentioned like uses within industrial, perhaps uses in manufacturing. Dare I say uses in agriculture here in Iowa.
Could be.
What uses, like, are we going to see farmers out in the fields wearing Vision Pro goggles, or are we going to see people in our manufacturing sector wearing these things? And if so, what are they doing with them? Or what will they be doing with them, I guess I should say.
So examples that have been provided for if somebody needs to learn how to assemble something, for example, or have to fix something mechanical, you could actually get in some cases, automated instructions if it's for assembly, where you actually pick up the parts and it literally shows you where you need to put the part and how you need to do it. So that could save time. Maybe IKEA will do it too. So, and
that's really
right?
good. If you need customer service, just put on your headset.
Put on your headset, and then that was supposed to go there.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. Right. And then anything that requires that where you would call someone for help. How do you fix this? How do you assemble this? I think this would give you another level of ability to communicate with other people that is hard to get now, because it's one thing to do verbal instructions, or even just somebody trying to get a video of something while they're talking to you. It's a little tricky. With this, you can have your hands free, so you can do work. You don't have to be holding a phone.
That's true. Yeah.
And somebody can be seeing what you see and even annotating what you're seeing. So they might be able to draw an arrow or point at something, and you see exactly what they're pointing at. So it's almost like having that expert right next to you.
Or how about any like agriculture uses, or any other like famous future uses that come to mind that you in the industry, or you guys talk about all the time in the educational space?
I mean, I think on the virtual reality side, a lot of it is about experiencing things that otherwise wouldn't be able to be experienced. So being able to visit places you can't visit, for example. There could be applications in healthcare too. That could be, some of it could be for support too. Say if you have a remote clinic and you need to bring in an expert and look at something, or a patient.
Oh, like a telemedicine, like a boost to telemedicine industry. Yep,
exactly. There could be in medicine also using these devices to distract you while you're having some procedure that's not very pleasant, for example.
Oh, that's a good point.
That could be something useful. And they've done things like this with like at pediatric hospitals, for example, before, and it seems to work. So I think those are some of the things that we're looking at. With augmented reality, the other part that was a little bit more of the vision that Google had with their Glass product was being able to see more information about what's around you as you walk around. If you like to see it, for example, you're visiting, again, maybe so all of this is for the business traveler. You're visiting someplace you haven't been to before. You can ask, for example, give me directions to touristy places, or show me the way to some good restaurants, and maybe you can see information about the places as you're walking by, things like that.
But like that's probably in the next couple of years, though, right? Because I would doubt, although it may be possible, I would doubt people are going to be walking around with these things in public, right?
Right.
At least I hope not.
That's a big part, and it's something that's hard to tell, right? Because if 20 years ago I had told you that you're going to see people talking to themselves in the streets and nobody will bat an eye. That would have been odd. And now we have folks with hands-free devices talking on the phone all the time, and we think it's perfectly normal.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe they're betting that this might become more acceptable. I have my doubts on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's my struggle too, is like even the phone, it solved a major problem that we had, which was direct communication with people over great distances. And so the cell phone and the earbud things were just kind of a natural miniaturization of that technology. But this is, I mean, it doesn't really, it's still kind of first gen, if I can call it that. All these VR headsets, there's nothing really like them. It's not like video calling even before this. Maybe video calling during the pandemic is kind of the first time it really went super mainstream. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so I'm not sure if we have a good historical example to compare this to, but I think a lot of people were expecting, because it's Apple, they were expecting big things. I think they were expecting a pair of glasses, something with a very thin form factor. But what we got was like something big and bulky that we've been seeing for years. I mean, it sounds to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds to me currently what this is a device that maybe a corporation like Pella Windows or Vermeer or the University of Iowa Hospitals, it sounds like a device that maybe at most companies will have 5 to 10 of these in centralized locations. And when you need customer service or you need to have a walkthrough demo or you need one, you go use it for a moment and then return it. But it doesn't sound like a device people are just going to be wearing all day. Is that a fair thing to say?
I would say so. And obviously, we haven't tried them, so I don't know how comfortable they are.
Right.
But with the existing ones, when I tried them, it's not something you feel comfortable wearing for a long time either. So, yeah. So I guess we'll have to see. I think, again, initially, my guess is going to be business traveler, going to be the target audience. And then perhaps they hope that if it gets a significant amount of buy-in from that community, that then eventually will trickle down. Especially when they get less expensive. Yeah.
What other challenges then, with our last few minutes, what are the big challenges then for a company like Apple or Meta, or I think you mentioned Microsoft has one too. I forgot about theirs, the HoloLens. What are the big challenges they have to face and overcome in order to achieve like the kind of mass adoption that the computer or the cell phone have achieved? What are those big challenges then?
Yeah, I think the big one is the one that we've been talking about all along. It's the social acceptability.
Sure.
I think that's big. One thing that Apple has resolved initially with Vision Pro is that by enabling you to use any existing app for their products, they already have a broad existing set of apps that you can use.
Good point.
Because that is something in particular with Microsoft HoloLens. That's the main thing they've been struggling with. And even with a Meta Quest Pro, there's a limited set of apps available right now. I mean, there's still plenty, but not as nearly as much as you can get on the App Store, say. Right. So,
yeah.
So I think that's going to be a challenge for them, is to get to take more advantage of the interesting things you might be able to do with this devices. You need third parties to start developing interesting apps that take advantage of all the capabilities of the devices.
Which is probably why they announced it, but it's not out until like 2024 because they need people to develop apps for it. Which I'm guessing if there's not acceptance and people don't develop apps, they may stop talking about it. I don't know if you have any insider knowledge, but I'm assuming they have not taken these to manufacturing yet, and they're waiting to see how it's received.
I mean, I'm guessing they might try to get a sense of how much interest there is before they figure out how many they're going to make. I don't know. I don't have insights on their business decisions.
I would imagine they haven't been sent to manufacturing yet, but I have a manufacturing client, but who knows? I guess I could ask them what the lead time is, maybe update the show notes page. But I think I agree with you. The the practical aspects and the social acceptance are going to be challenging, because if you've ever seen someone in VR, like waving their arms around, it does look kind of funny. And are people going to be willing to do that in front of others, or are they going to do that in closed off closets by themselves in dark rooms? And then, of course, there's the function. Like, if we do go to AR and we have these thin glasses, are glasses wearers going to swap their pair of glasses for an Apple glasses? Because, is Apple going to design hundreds of different frame versions? Are non-glasses wearers going to be willing to wear a pair? I mean, there are so many questions. Dr. Juan Pablo Hourcade, Ph.D., Professor, Director of Graduate Studies for the Interdisciplinary Graduate Program in Informatics at the University of Iowa. How can people learn more about what you are working on over at the university?
I guess look me up online at the University of Iowa's website. So we're actually doing the one project that we're doing that's related to this is we're looking at extended reality technology, so all this VR, AR, and how children might use them. And we're actually running sessions with parents and professionals who work with children to understand ethical aspects and understand from direct stakeholders what they think might be appropriate uses and which ones are not.
Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating. And I know the listeners and myself, of course, appreciate all the time you've given us today. Dr. Hourcade, thank you so much for coming on the Iowa podcast. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa podcast.